Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Before Breakfast Digital Dialogue. I'm Charlie Nixon from the Westchester Multicultural Chamber, bringing to you secrets to building an unforgettable digital brand identity. Today, we will be discussing content to clients, your social media voice, website SEO strategies. With different formats offered each week, attendees will learn skills needed to expand their personal brand, learn fresh new ideas from other business professionals, and cultivate valuable relationships. Our moderator today is Michael J. Giordano from Buzz Potential. Take it away, Mike.
Thank you, Charlene. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending. We have a really great panel today. We have Itzel Aguilera, who's the principal of Westchester Blogger. We have Henry Ramos, who's the former director of operations for News 12 Westchester, who's also providing our technology. So thank you, Henry. And we also have our presenting sponsor, Elena Rivera-Cheek, president of Copy and Art. So we have a little intro video for you to watch. Awesome. Thank you very much, Henry. So Elena Rivera-Cheek is the founder and chief creative officer of Copy and Art, which was founded over 10 years ago. Elena is involved in the Westchester business community as a member of the Westchester Multicultural Chamber, the Business Council of Westchester, and Westchester County Association. She recently was awarded, as a matter of fact, recently was this week, the Business Council's Hall of Fame Award for Minority Business Success. So congratulations, Elena. That's an awesome. Your name will be on the airport plaque, which is pretty cool in Westchester County Airport. She will be featured in the March-April issue of 914 Inc. in a Q&A and on the cover of the magazine. She is a sought-after speaker regarding her career in advertising and is a woman and minority-owned business leader, appearing on webinars, podcasts, and in-person events. Elena gives back to the community in various volunteer efforts, including being a mentor for Her Honor Mentoring and a business mentor for the Women's Development Enterprise Center. Copy and Art is a presenting sponsor of the Business Before Breakfast series, so thank you very much, Elena. We appreciate that support. So, just a couple of ground rules before we start. I do have a set of questions for each of our panelists, but we'd really like to get to questions from the audience. So don't be afraid to just ask questions where you can see it on the chat, and we will get to them as, if we're in the middle of a question, we'll get through that question, but then we'll answer your question. The goal here today is to give each one of you a nugget or two that you can use and apply right away, hopefully today, or if not, tomorrow. But that's what the goal is. So I'm going to start off the questions with Itzel. And the first question I have for you is, how long have you had your channel?
I've had my channel now for about 8 years. So now I started Instagram 8 years ago. Mm-hmm.
That's like ancient history for Instagram. That's a long time. I mean, right? I mean, that's a senior user of Instagram at 8 years, right?
Right. Yeah. So I started doing it 8 years ago, but it didn't really hit off until about 2 years ago with the pandemic.
Let me ask you this: when 8 years ago, so how has Instagram changed in those 8 years?
Instagram's changed a lot, especially with the algorithms. I've noticed a lot. Before, it was easier to have your videos or your photos seen just by using hashtags, but now it's all about algorithms, and I'll get into that a little bit later.
And the next question, and then I'm going to move on to Elena, but what inspired you to get involved with, especially because there's all these other things going on, there was Vine and this and that, and there's all these things going on all the time. What inspired you to do Instagram? And even 8 years ago, Facebook had more of a positive presence than it does now. So why Instagram?
I went through Instagram. Well, I mean, I do have Facebook, but I use Instagram more just because of the fact that you're able to reach out to, like, if you're like a business, you're able to have more actual marketing for you, working for you on Instagram, because you're able to, like, Facebook, you're able to tag as well. But with Instagram, I realized that you're able to reach a broader audience. So just by using like the right hashtags, the right times to post, you're able to get more views and you're able to be just seen more out there. So I noticed for me, Instagram works best.
The algorithm change has been a real issue.
Mm-hmm.
We probably we'll talk about that a little bit more because that's a real issue. Because for organic reach, it's a lot harder now to get
Mm-hmm.
organic reach, and they want you to buy ads, and that's fine if you've got the budget, but if you don't, you got to do the humana sometimes, and hopefully you guys will give them some tips on how to do the humana. For those of you who don't know what that means, that's from the Jackie Gleason show from the 50s. That's like dinosaur stuff, but that's okay. It's timeless comedy. All right. So Elaine, I want to go to you now. This is an interesting question. It kind of just segues into sort of what I just mentioned. What advice would you give an organization with a limited budget on how to spend their money? Provided they know who their target audience is and all that stuff. That's a great question. What's your advice on that?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think regardless of the size of the business that we're talking about, budget is always the biggest constraint to marketing. Always, even with our larger clients. That's the number one complaint. So I would say one of the things that we tell all of our clients, and we also practice at Copy and Art, is the art of being resourceful, because these days there are a lot of technologies out there. Henry, I know you have a couple that we were talking about off cam, which are like Canva and Fiverr. And Canva's here, you can see, I mean, their subscriptions are pretty affordable. And there's some pretty easy technology to leverage there. If, for instance, you can't afford a professional designer or a professional ad agency. Really what we did at Copy and Art before we had any kind of marketing budget was we were resourceful, and we created ads on our own outside of what our typical working hours. We would sit there, and team members from the agency would create Facebook ads and Instagram. And, relatively speaking, we could say they stunk for now, but we were getting content out there and we were practicing. And that is the key if you're a small business. It really depends on the size of your business and, what your budget is. But today, and Fiverr's another one where, let's say you need some professional help, you don't have a tremendous amount of money. This is a good place to find relatively inexpensive professionals that could help you do a couple of, big important things you might need, like maybe a short video or explainer video for your website, or something that is a little bit outside of your amateur league for creating content, but you don't have to go and hire a professional that's going to charge you thousands of dollars. So there are a lot of tools out there now that weren't there before that smaller businesses can use, if budget is a real concern, like it was for us, 6-7 years ago.
As a follow-up to that, how do you, when you're working with someone and or starting to talk with them and whatever, and they do have a budget, but they don't know what their budget should be. How do you work with someone to get them to where they comfortably need to be for the budget based on what their needs are? So this not someone that says I have no money, because that's not the best client in the world. That's a Fiverr client or a Canva client. Oh yeah, Fiverr. What's the name of the agency? It's called Fiverr.
Please.
Right? Yes, please, Fiverr. But when you're at the stage where someone is going to work with you, or any agency, but work with you in particular, how do you coach them? Because that happens a lot. That happens a lot where
Sure.
people don't really know what to spend. So give us some insights on that, if you could.
So the good news is that I don't make this up. There's a lot of research supporting what successful businesses spend on average on their marketing. So it ranges, and it depends on the kind of business that you have, but it ranges anywhere from 8 to 23% of your revenue. So depending on how much money your business is bringing in every year, there's a certain percentage that needs to be carved out for marketing, because you need to ensure that people know what you're doing. And most importantly, the problems that you solve, right? Because we're all in business to solve problems. So when a new client approaches us and they want to talk about marketing, or they want to talk about their creative, really we ask them a lot of questions about, what size business they are, so we can determine the right budget for them. And then what problems do they solve for what target demographic? And then based on who they're trying to target and what they're trying to communicate, we're experts in this field. So we know kind of, to what Aita was saying earlier, it's like, where are they? People going to be on Facebook? Or channel?
Oh, it looks like the Russians have invaded our thing.
On mine? No, the Russians were coming for Henry's talk.
The Russians are coming for you. They're not going to the Ukraine. They're going to Elena's feed.
No, they're going to Henry because he has multi-cams.
Oh, okay. The conspiracy. That's it. So Ramos actually means conspiracy. I understand. That's funny. So go ahead. We lost you a little bit of you there at the end.
Okay. So basically, I was talking about, depending on what problem traffic they're going for, that's how we choose the kind of media mix for their creative.
This is interesting, and then we're going to move on to Henry, but I just wanted to ask you, this is what I found as well, is that also at a client level, it's important to have an advocate or someone that is sort of focused on marketing, because if you don't have that and it's just maybe the owner directly and there isn't anyone there that's sort of the person that can push this through, don't you find that that's an issue when if you're dealing directly with the owner? Oftentimes they're so busy, they don't have time for that. So doesn't it make sense for a business that works with an agency to have a liaison type person, something like that you can work with? Because if you have to go directly to the owner, oftentimes that can be problematic because they're running the business.
That one was aimed at me, Mike?
Oh, yes,
Or
yes.
Henry?
That was a little bit of a follow-up for you, yeah, since you were talking about that topic, yes.
Okay, I didn't know if, so yeah, I mean, we have a full service agency, so we have a whole team that's dedicated to the client experience, and what our clients need and what they're trying to accomplish strategically. And then we also have, from our perspective, a head of marketing and PR, who I think might be actually on here today, who deals with like the copy and art side of how do we market and how do we let people know that we exist. So we do both. But yes,
because
it
it's
can't
a
be
two-way
me. I mean,
relationship.
right. And it can't be me because as the company grows, as the panel can probably attest to, you have to be very kind of cognizant of your time and how you're spending it.
Exactly. That's why you have a good team, because if you go in there and you're awesome and then the rest of the team is marginal, they're like, I want Elena. I don't want Mike. Why? What's wrong with me? I get you.
Yeah.
All right, Henry, it's your turn. And this is a good one. This is a great question. So Zoom is part of our reality now. It's funny, before the pandemic, I kind of knew what Zoom was, but I didn't really ever use it. I never had used it at all, really, I don't think. So Zoom and online meetings have taken place now for 2 years, basically 2 years. How can someone make a great online first impression, especially if they've never done this before?
Well, in my opinion, virtual's been here for 2 years now, or in a couple of months it'll be 2 years. But I think you need to have, just like you get dressed well for your meetings or your pitches, you need to look on the web, just like we are now. So, everybody's been on a Zoom call where somebody's audio is low, or they have the window right behind them and they look like a shadow. So. Basically you want to you want to look presentable on here, and that could mean investing in equipment. I mean, companies are saving a ton of money because they're not sending people, they're not paying for lunches. They're not, if they're a larger company, they're not flying people around anymore. It's worth spending a couple of $100 at least on your kit. And then just the real quick once over. In order of priority, you have to have good internet, so that if you can hardline into your router or something like that, get somebody to help you. Second, close second, I would say, is audio, because people will deal with video breaking up a little bit or with like not so great picture. But if your audio is breaking up, they're going to tune out like that. And then third, I'll actually say, is lighting before a camera, because a lot of webcams, whether it's your laptop or whether it's a Mac and you've got it built in, or a Microsoft Surface, those cameras can still look decent if you just get a decent light in front of you. And last I'll say is camera. If you want to upgrade your camera, then just get at least a dedicated webcam. Like Logitech is something that I recommend to most folks. But that was they were really hard to come by. If you remember when the pandemic started, everything was sold out. So,
Yep.
but now everything's back, and there's a multitude of choices out there. But that people, I think, to make that great first impression, especially if you're meeting somebody for the first time, like I'll do demos online, and I want to look presentable. Especially being in the video business, I need to look presentable. But yeah,
Exactly.
invest some money in your kit, and any one of us could probably help you.
Now, here's a follow-up to that, Henry. What about, and by the way, I have my Caucasian yellow light on. You can see that I'm a little yellow, so I have to get a better light. I actually shaved today and everything for this, so that's how much it was
I'm right
important.
behind you.
Right, Henry, you and I get the ball thing going. But what about, and I think about this a lot, because I do go to, we've all been on a lot of Zooms and whatnot, but what about the people that talk like this, and they basically aren't very good, and they freeze,
Public
at News
speakers.
12, freezing in front of the camera. What kind of advice, what kind of advice do you give to someone that really hasn't done that before and may not be comfortable with it, but it's crucial now to be able to get in front of the camera and just be able to do it. You got to make it happen. And if you're boring, you're going to kill people. You're just going to go, I can't
I
take
had
it.
a little bit of that myself, because I'm always behind the camera, and now, as the owner of a small business, I got to put my face out there. I got to meet people. I got to get in front of the camera, like now. So, biggest thing I'll say is just practice. That could be a relative, that could be your friends, especially if you have some really good friends. Role play. I've got a pitch to this company that I've been trying to get for 2 years. So practice, just like before our show today, before we opened the webinar up to the public, we were practicing a little bit beforehand, and
Sure.
boom, everybody did great. So yeah, that's the first thing I would say is practice. And then if you want to get, there are even sales training courses out there online for people to speak in public. But, if you want to like really step up your game, or if you're fine in person, but you're a little weird just looking at a camera lens, then, then those people might want to practice too.
I found that years ago, I went to Dale Carnegie. I was forced to go because I gave a speech and I swore in Italian after I dropped the microphone. And thank God the audience wasn't too Italian, but some of them knew what I said. So the owner goes, "You got to go to Dale Carnegie." I'm like, "Oh, what's Dale?" And I kind of knew what Dale Carnegie was. But I got to tell you, at the time, I don't know what it's like now, but it got me out of my comfort zone. I was a speech major in college, but I was used to doing things my way. And there's your own way, but then there's also, you have to have some corporate stuff. You can't be totally crazy when you're up there. So I would also suggest if anyone does any speaking training as well, that would be great. Now we have a question from either someone from the audience or Charlene. So I'm not sure. It's got Charlene's name on it. So I'm going to credit this question to Charlene. I am going to open it up to all three of you, okay? Because I think this is important, because it's all about one of the things we're trying to talk about. For a company needing rebranding to reach a new or underserved market, what do you suggest? And we'll go to Itzel first, then Elena, then Henry. Boom. Want me to read it again? Did you get that? Or
Eitzel?
Yeah, can you read it
Itzel?
again?
Yep. For a company needing rebranding to reach a new or underserved market, what do you suggest?
Definitely, when it comes to a company needing rebranding, to pick a niche. As far as you're creating your content, you have to pick a niche and see what works for you, to see what didn't work for you before. So, like for example, I have a client who did a whole rebranding, and for them, what worked for them was, so they're a pizzeria, and they were doing videos, they were being consistent, they were posting photos, and they were like, listen, we've been 6 months being consistent, and we haven't seen any results. What's going on? And it's like, you got to see what works for you. You got to see what your clients are. You got to see who are the people coming to you. What kind of, what are you mostly getting? What kind of orders? Is it pizza? Is it pastas? Like, what's your main thing? So then he started doing videos where he would show like the process of the pizza being made, and then like the pasta, like, doing cute little like 10-second videos, like, and he started incorporating. And this is what I mean by it's important to use all of Instagram. So this, he's using Instagram. So it's important to use all of Instagram's tools. That's what they want you to use. So you have to use the reels. You have to use, the hashtags, everything that Instagram has for you to use it. So he started hashtagging, he started making the videos on reels, and then now his Instagram, within like not even 2 months, has blown up by like 3,000 following.
That's great.
So to rebrand, definitely, like, you got to find exactly what works for you.
And that's very local. That's a local pizzeria, right? Yeah, it's not like Papa John's or something. This is a local owned.
No, local pizzeria.
Yeah, right. That doesn't have the name recognition of one of those chain pizza places. Elena, what are your thoughts?
I think when we're thinking about a rebrand for any of our clients, or like just thinking about it from an organizational perspective, I think it helps to think about who the company is becoming. So, right. So we should think about brands in terms of communicating value and the problems that we solve as an organization. But like, what's the future of that look like for the company? Because, right, a brand should represent kind of where you're going to. But it should be, unless there's something really wrong with your brand, it should be consistent with what they've seen. If you look at Copy and Art, for instance, we probably rebrand every 2 years. A lot of that is to keep it fresh. But we don't go from this big, bold, kind of charismatic, sharp agency to something kind of quiet and soft, because that's not who we are. Right? It's just a different iteration
You're
of
not a quiet person, Elena.
me.
Yeah.
I mean, some people think Mike Giordano thinks I am, but other than that, no. And that's, I used to tell people we're in the process of like building a new office. So we don't have we're in a temp space now. But if you would have walked through our older office, there were like big messages on the wall and flat screen TVs playing our video and conference rooms and it was like, that's who we are. And we have to be consistent with the authentic experience a client's going to get. So I would just say, for rebranding, thinking about what the company really does offer in terms of problem solving, and also thinking about the future and what the company is evolving into, so that you're not behind the 8 ball on your own business.
Thank you. Henry.
I will totally defer to Elena and Eitzel on the rebranding online, because I'm, tech video guy. But something that strikes me is, you want to evaluate your campaign before you go online, but make sure you're targeting the right platform. Like, as a lot of people say out there, Facebook market's a little older. Is that your market? Instagram, trends younger, and visual. So if you're in video or photography, Instagram should be your thing. But hopefully you've kind of got that figured out already. But just like Elena was saying, every once in a while your company should do a refresh. When we were at News 12, we would refresh the whole on-air graphics look and spend a lot of time and money, reinventing the look, or the font, as little as the fonts and the colors and all of that. So yeah, rebranding, I would say, is like, you don't have to completely change your identity, to Elena's point, but definitely, change it up. You want to get noticed, and plan to spend some marketing dollars, because you want people to see what you've invested all this time and money in.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, I find a lot is when you ask someone what they do, they're really good at describing the particulars of what they do, but they're not as good as talking about their why. What their why is. What's why are they doing what they're doing? And I think when you don't know what your why is, you just know what you do. Like, I build websites. All right, that's awesome. But why do you build websites? What's the essence of what you're doing? And you can connect with people on that level once they know that you're passionate about what you're doing. I think, by the way, I'm looking at the chat here, and we've got some stuff going on, which is exciting. That means people are paying attention. We're thrilled with that. So I'm going to mention people that are saying good morning, and then there's some questions too. But I want to welcome my friend, Joe Gilderson from Corporate Audiovisual Services. Joe and I are both from Boston. So, Elena, if your agency was in Massachusetts, it'd be called Copy and Art. But you're not. You're in New York, so we won't say that.
I like that.
Right, Copy and Art. Joe and I are also in a band together. So he's the drummer. So, multi-talented. And I sing horribly. That's why I don't mind being in front of a camera, because I'm usually on stage embarrassing myself. So it's awesome. And then we have, I don't know where Sonia Montano's from, but welcome, Sonia. Thank you for being here.
I know Sonia. Sonia's awesome.
You know Sonia? Okay, cool. Thank you for being here.
Thanks,
That's great.
Sonia.
Now, here's Joe just put Copy and Art. There we go. Charlene is a question machine. Okay, I just want to say that one of the benefits of being involved with the Westchester Multicultural Chamber is Charlene is a question factory. Okay, she will get the right information from you. So I'm going to read this next question. This is pretty cool. And this goes to Henry. Why is it important? Why is it important for have video? I can't even. What does that tell us? That say? Why is it important video ready as far as your image? Why is it important for video to be great for your image? And then, isn't sound messaging considered audio branding? So it's a two-part question, even though I messed up the first part.
Sound messaging, Charlene. I might pop you on screen to clarify that. But video, I mean, there's a ton of articles and blogs that say, if you're going to have any social online presence, you need to have video. I mean, you scroll through your feeds and it's like video, maybe a picture, and less text only posts. Obviously that, Instagram is huge. Like the stories, I know we'll tell you more about that, but like stories and reels are all about Instagram. I'm much less scrolling in Instagram rather than just watching the stories. Is that how you see it, Itzel?
Yeah, and that's what's important too, that I tell a lot of people, that a static post as opposed to like a story, you're gonna get different views. So it's very important to do both and to link and keep linking. Like whatever you put on, let's say you do a reel, mention it in stories, because there's some people who only watch stories and there's some people who only just scroll. So it's important to do both.
Stories is like its own ecosystem. It's strange when you think, right? When you look at stories, like you're right. There are people that almost only post stories, and it's funny. I watch some people do an event and they'll post a story. I'm like, okay, that's great. You put the event up, but like the event's next week, and you've put a story up about an event from now, but it's gone. It's not, doesn't stay up. So it's interesting. It might make sense to people have to be coached on how to use stories for certain things. Correct? Like if you have an event and you just put it up on stories once, that's kind of crazy, especially if you do it like 2 weeks before. It's right. So you have to when you're working with people. Right, you got to counsel them on how to use stories, because it's not necessarily, especially if it's event centric, putting it up once isn't going to suffice, right?
Just to chime in real quick, my small pet peeve, maybe because I'm older, I hate seeing people's stories that are just reposts. And it's like, okay, I'm watching this like 5, especially when it's somebody else that you follow, then you're watching like the same story like 15 times, and I just get tired of that. Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
Well, you see people now, they'll say new post, and they'll direct you, because there are people that only look at stories, so then it says, oh, new post, and you're like, oh, great, new post, and then you look for the new post. So it's interesting. That's a whole. We could have a whole session just on stories.
Elena looks like she's biting her tongue, like she wants to say something. I don't know.
For those
No,
people who
I
don't know,
think I
stories
think
only
it's
last
fascinating.
24 hours.
Right. But you can select, right, to put them into the feed.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, then it has a little bit of a longer shelf life. But I think one of the most interesting and kind of exciting things for me is so we do this professionally, right? And we sell social media end to end and all this stuff. But, like, so much of this can be done really well with people who kind of prioritize marketing of their services or their business. Like, organically. They can do it without a big agency. I mean, great, hire us, but like there's so much that can be done. And there's some professionals in Westchester that I see doing it really, really well. And sometimes you can see they had a little professional help, but a lot of times it's just them like putting in the time to learn the platform, get maybe investing to Henry's point in a little bit of good lighting or a good camera, and they're really kind of doing it themselves. And I would just, I guess, this audience, depending on where they are in the marketing spectrum, they should really start experimenting, because I think part of what keeps people maybe who are a little bit, let's say, older from experiencing in social is fear. And I would say have fun with it, because nobody cares that much about one post. Nothing is that serious. If you mess it up, who cares? Like you're going to get stronger and better at it. And like our team is really creative. They come up with these ideas, and it's like, go test it, because even if it flops, we learn something. And that's, I think, part of the beauty of building, a digital brand is really thinking about what can we experiment with? How can we be different? How can we stand out? We aim for scroll stopping, right? So that's our goal, is always scroll stopping creative. And so, if you have intentionality and you're experimenting, you're having fun, and you're listening to the analytics behind it to see how many people are looking, clicking, engaging, you'll get it.
It's interesting about you said about the experimenting and then looking at the analytics. Years ago, before social, before even digital, there was no analytics. You'd have to spend thousands of dollars for research. Thousands of dollars. I used to work at the LA Times, and they spent thousands of dollars on research, and we couldn't even talk about it because in newspapers, which is my background, each section has different readership, but they don't tell you that.
Right.
They just give you a price for everything. So they didn't want the analytics. Well, now you can get great analytics, and so it's you screw up, that post doesn't get any traction. Okay, you learn from it. And oftentimes stuff comes up like, wow, I didn't think this, who cares about this? And it does. And then you look at that data and you can make intelligent decisions, which before in the traditional media world, sometimes you were winging it. You were crossing your fingers and hoping that, sometimes it's not just about the cash register ringing because you're trying to do brand building and whatever. All right, we have another question here. You know what, Henry? The chat went up, so I can't really see the name of the jeweler. Is it the chat? The chat moved. Oh, here we go. Okay, Taylor. I think the name was Taylor Khan. I think. I see Taylor. Anyways, Taylor's question is. Thank you, Taylor, for asking the question. I'm a jewelry designer with a newly launched website. My Instagram site gets lots of likes. How do I drive customers from my Instagram site to my website and convert them from a browser to a buyer? Especially when there are so many other jewelry sites. How do I create my why? So I'm throwing it out to any one of you that want to answer that. Go for it.
I think that's ISO all day.
Got to sell more rocks.
Oh, wrong way. Sorry, that way. Yes.
Throw it.
Throw it that way. What I noticed on jewelry, so I do a lot of pop-ups, and what I've noticed from the pop-ups that a lot of the jewelry vendors do a lot of reels. Again, reels are important, but I noticed on your bio, on your profile, you have to have your website. But I noticed when you do a link tree, a lot of people, instead of just clicking the website, a lot of people I don't know why. I don't know if people are lazy enough to just go ahead and like they have to go to the shop and click it. But I notice if you do a link tree and you actually put, for example, like bracelets and charms and necklaces, people like to see it like categorized like that. So then they go ahead and click it, and then you go ahead and link it to your Etsy or your website or wherever you have the shop located at. But I noticed that Linktree does help the best.
So I'm going to piggyback off of something Aitel said. People are lazy. And so the secret to convert one from a buyer, really easy for them to buy.
Make
I
it
mean,
really
I think
easy
it's
for them to
make
buy.
it make it really easy for them to buy. So if you're featuring a certain product, it should be really easy for them to find out how to actually just purchase it from there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the problem also with Instagram, I would love to have like 10 minutes with Zuckerberg. Not to forget the political element of it, just the functionality. It's like, okay, you know what? I've done drugs in the past. I feel like they're on drugs when they design this stuff. Like, okay, let's make Instagram no links, but we'll do it on Facebook, and then not tell anybody, and then change stuff and not tell you, and all of a sudden the novice has to sit there and try to figure out what's going on, and then there's no customer service when something goes wrong. I would imagine if we all had the customer service that Facebook has. Hi, I'm trying to reach Copy and Art. Click. It's pathetic. It's unbelievably pathetic. So, and this rant means that it's important to work with professionals because it is a jungle out there with these. They don't make it easy for you. You can watch, YouTube videos, and there's a person on there that'll show you. But there's things that change, and there's nuances and essences that you need to have. So there is a lot of competition in jewelry. So this is definitely good stuff. You really need to be able to kind of whirl through this jungle. We have all kinds of stuff going on here. We've got Joe Gillison saying copy and art, so we like that. We have Joan Buccino. I don't know where Joan is from, but Joan asked, when is the next gig? Now, Charlene answered that based on Westchester Multicultural. I hope she's not asking about the band, because you have to ask Joe, because I don't know. I'll sing anytime, but that's a whole other thing. Here's a good question. Oh, we have another Bostonian. Wow, we're raiding this place. Kevin Jackson is from Boston. Hello, Kevin. Park your car. And we have all right. Here's a good question from Giovanni Lopes. Do you prefer to use an actual camera or just phones? Now, I think, Elaine, I'm not going to defer this to you, and because I'd like to see what our other two panelists say, because that's an interesting comment, especially now, given how good the phones are. The newer phones are awesome. So, Henry, I'm going to have you answer that first.
Excuse me. Well, for something like this, prefer a dedicated camera if that's what he's talking about. Just because somebody could call you while you're on your phone. I've had people remoted into systems and they've had to use a phone and they get a call in the middle of a conference and they go black or they freeze or whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's so professional, but whatever. If it's for Instagram and everything, I think phones are phenomenal, especially like the cinematic mode now on the iPhone. I'm like, wow, maybe I need to get off of Android, but I don't know. What do you guys think about posting? Cameras, phones?
So for me, I use both. I use my phone and my camera. It really depends what I'm trying to do. Like if I'm doing a product shoot, I'm going to use my camera because you want to get, the best quality pictures that you have out there. If you're just using it, just to make a reel or if you're going to post a story. But when I go, like what Henry said about going live sometimes, just on my phone, I get interrupted by phone calls and then like you get a glitch and then you just like it looks unprofessional. So yeah, definitely. I mean, if you don't have to go out and purchase a brand new camera, the iPhone does what you need it to do. But just if you want to do like, if you, it depends what you're using it for. Like the person who asked earlier for the jewelry business, you want to use a professional camera to get some product shots.
You
Or if
know,
you're a restaurant and you want to post, how the food looks.
I think this is an S10 that I have that I've lost twice, but that's a whole other issue. There's a real tremendous difference with these cameras that have the phones that have the three lenses. It's a tremendous difference from the earlier phones. So the latest iPhone, the Pixel, the Samsung has a 20 or whatever the hell it is, 2021. It's amazing. My wife has an S20 Note, and the clarity. Now everything has to be good. You can't just have crappy lighting, but it's unbelievable how powerful they are. So and the only problem is, Henry, the audio can often be crappy with external noise and whatever else. And there's things you can do. I've seen hookups and everything else, but it was a great question. Thank you for that question. All right, we have more questions. They're pouring in like a river of questions here. I'm going to go to Joe Gilderson first, and then I see Sonia has a question. So Joe Gilderson from Corporate Audio Visual asks, is it better to post across all your social media at the same time, or spreading it out a bit so it hits at different times on different platforms? Well, that's an interesting question. What do you think about that?
Well, the good news is that these things change all the time based on who you're trying to target. So when they're going on, what time. It used to be that maybe a few years ago, there were certain set times. So they would say Thursday between 2 and 4, this target demographic is, scrolling or they're on the train. So they're actually on their phone versus working. Today, however, there's a lot of technology out there with some of the posting platforms that you can use to help you, right? Because part of the problem is creating content. And then the other part of it is posting the content. And there are platforms now that'll actually tell you the best time to post it. Or you can click a button and it'll say, post at the best time based on all of my other parameters. And it will pick the best time to post it for you. So, before where we had to know exactly, there are better times for certain demographics. For instance, if you're targeting, let's say a stay-at-home mom of 3 in Westchester, you might not want to post your content, let's say, while they're getting their kids ready for school. But maybe research will tell you that they put their kids on the bus and then they grab a cup of coffee and they might pick up their phone at about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever it is. And it'll give you that specificity so that your content doesn't get lost in the feed. But we don't have to guess those things anymore. There's like pretty affordable technology that will post it for you at a given time, and you can actually just select post it at the best time for, my goals, whatever they are.
And so what do you think from a standpoint of
I
working
agree with what
endpoint?
I agree, but for me, I don't like to use third-party apps because I realize Instagram kind of blocks you when they realize you're using third-party apps. So for me, for what I realized, it depends what you're posting. But like she said, like if you're trying to target a stay-at-home mom. So for me, what I've noticed, if your business is if you're on Instagram and you have a business, whether it's a restaurant or a small business, I noticed the perfect times to post is 4 to 6, 8 to 10. And then 4 to 6 p.m. Those are the best times. And then 9 p.m. Like that's when everybody goes live and you get like so many followers on there. So 9 p.m. But if you're on TikTok, the perfect time to post is 5 a.m., 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 7 p.m. And that's for any post that you're doing on TikTok. That's where you'll get on the For You page and you'll get more followings.
I got to watch a replay to write that down.
Yeah, those are cool numbers, man. That's
Serious.
good. On TikTok, I didn't know about that. That's great. I don't really use TikTok
just
yet.
because I don't like to use third-party apps.
Sure. I hear you.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think you have more control when you post manually, but there are people like who have 50 posts in advance and they use that to kind of supplement their organic. right? Because it should be a mix. Once you get more sophisticated, it's going to be some creative that's devved out in advance. And then there's going to be that organic that comes up because you just made, let's say you're a restaurant, this beautiful meal, and somebody needs to see that now. So,
Right.
there's a time and place for everything, but I think you're right. It's more holistic if you're posting at the right times manually, if you
And
can.
also to get more engagement, when you post on a static post on Instagram, make sure that you engage within that hour. So don't just post and turn your phone off and walk away. You have to engage for a full hour in order for it to be successful.
That's cool. You know, I
That's a good
experiment with
point.
my with my own Instagram, and I'll post things at 4 in the morning just to see what happens because I'm not asleep. And it's interesting. I'll experiment with putting a post up with just hashtags, right? Then I'll put a post up with hashtags and tags. And what's interesting is that it does okay for me, but I have to be cognizant of what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for a client. And some clients just want stuff up, and there's a mass. It's like 20 posts to do. All right, just gonna throw it up there, and they have enough followers, they get enough tonnage. So it's interesting, the time thing. That's a great. Those are great tips. So we'll have to, right, Henry. We'll have to maybe extract those out, and when they do the follow up email on this, because that's valuable information. Now I think it's time for a commercial. Am I wrong here, Henry? Is that what we're doing now?
Yeah, from our lovely sponsor. So stand by.
This
Awesome tips by Copy and Art. That's great stuff. Part of the problem is that, and what we've had in the past is that this technology changes so fast. You really need partners to help you guide you, and that's why one of the reasons why we put this panel together, so that you could have some great information that you can utilize once you're off this call and understand. And this is really important, that Westchester has a lot of talent right here. You don't have to go to New York City. The problem with New York City is well, there's many problems in New York City right now, but the problem with New York City also is that you spend 2 to 3 to 4 times more because of their rent. So in Westchester, there's a lot of talent that's worked in the city that has that expertise, that has, whether it be national expertise or local expertise, and it's right here. It's right here in Westchester in the Hudson Valley. So it's important. I think one of the things this pandemic has shown us to do is it's important to shop and support local. And that's what we have here. We have 3 great people that can help you locally and that will funnel dollars. Because I know Elena spends everything in Westchester. She doesn't spend her money anywhere else. She just invests in Westchester. So it's, she doesn't.
Westchester and St. Bart's. St.
Okay,
Bart's.
okay, well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You have to, hopefully you leave from Westchester County Airport, but that's fine. That's fine.
Actually never been to St. Bart, so that was a joke. But yeah, I think there's a huge, like, kudos to Charlene for starting this thing, for just to say, we could sponsor a bunch of things and we could spend our time in a bunch of ways. So it's a privilege that the audience is listening to us. There she is, beautiful Charlene. Like, kudos for acknowledging that Westchester has a lot of different cultures at the business table that are very successful, that are in a different, on the spectrum of where they are from a marketing perspective or from a business perspective, but that, you can call businesses around the table to help one another in Westchester, I think is really impressive. So kudos to you, Charlene, for even doing this. So, we're thrilled to be here, but I think kudos to you, my darling. Sorry, had to do that.
No, that's good. We like that. We're going to support each other, We don't
the key.
have the big marketing budgets and lobbying budgets of like Big Pharma and Big Food, so we have to stick together and help each other out. So that's important. All right, now, normally I would ask this next question, but it's from Charlene. I'm going to hold off because I see there's a question from Sonia Montano, which I think is a great question. And Charlene's question is good too, but I like Sonia's better, so I'm going to read her question. It's asked, how do you expand your B2B business on social media? B2C is business to consumer. That's one issue. That's what the jeweler was talking about. But B2B is a different animal. So what do you all think about that? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Henry's
so I love-
it over to you two. Okay, Henry's he's shooting from mid-court right now, and he's telling you guys. So either one.
Yeah,
go ahead, you guys.
It depends what kind of B2B it is. We're a B2B, so we get it. And what's worked for Copy and Art is really getting as close to multi-channel and omni-channel as we can. So meaning, hopefully, you're going to see us today, and then you're going to pick up 914 Inc. next month, and you're going to see us there. And then we're going to be at an event for another county organization walking through. We're going to be at the next Westchester Multicultural Chamber live. So really the point is to kind of, to the extent that you can, be as many places as you can, because there's so much competition for people's mind space right now. And so many brands they're seeing and so many ads they're seeing, that the extent to which you can be on social, have a nice YouTube channel, walk the live events and talk to people, get some play in print. I think that's where we've seen the brand catapult. And it's important for businesses to know we're here. So the fact that it's working, but we're taking not just one approach. Yeah, we love like social, but we need to be in other places to reach our businesses. So that's what works for us.
That's great. Itzel, what do you think?
I absolutely agree with everything she said.
Wow.
Just
See,
said it on
there's
point.
still, you can, who says this country's divided? You can agree on things, right? Well, right here. We'll show the politicians in Washington that, damn it, we can agree on stuff. Unbelievable.
Well, and thank you for that, because like, hold on a second, I got to shout her out because my girl has a 25 behind her, and if you don't know what that's about, she has 25,000 followers. So like the fact that she agreed with me, like, yes.
I was excited when I had
Congratulations.
25 followers. So this is awesome. This is
You have 25 followers. Yes,
you know,
yes.
Also for that question, I think might be helpful too, is that as Elena said regarding a trifecta or more of different channels and things you're doing. Well, one of the things I found very effective is that if you go to a business event and you have a decent camera and you have a sense of how to take a good photo, take photos at events and post them, especially like on LinkedIn, because people love that, and it gives the appearance that you're everywhere. There's a person who joined the Business Council who's really good at doing this. Her name is Sunny Lampasso, and Sunny posts stuff up of an event and then tags people and then shares it on her LinkedIn. So do that. Go to an event. The next time you're at the Westchester Multicultural Chamber event, take some pictures, post them. Share them with Charlene. People go, and especially good pictures. Don't take bad pictures, because make sure the chins are up. No double chins. And there's all sorts of. Henry can tell you. Maybe we can have a clinic from Henry on what to do. But that's also very helpful. Very helpful as well. We have another
And
question.
tag the location as well.
Oh, yes. Good point. Good point. Mm-hmm. All right, we have tons of questions here. So Joan, who I gave a shout out to before, Joan is from her company's called One Green Nation. Oh, that's a cool name. And she was asking about the band. I think if I asked her to look at the Facebook page, she may not ask about the band anymore, but that's another issue. Okay, she lives in New Paltz, which is great to live. Here's a question from her. It's not a question; it's a statement. It says you can put on airplane mode so you don't get phone calls. So that's true. Right? If you
can, but
live, yeah.
tons of people are still calling on WhatsApp and Messenger.
Oh, okay.
So that's what happened to the person in question. They had like somebody international that they used WhatsApp, and they were in the middle of a show and they got like an international call on WhatsApp, and it kicked them right out.
I forgot about WhatsApp. That's true. So those third-party
So airplane mode's
SOBs, you got to be
great,
careful.
you know, but on Wi-Fi, if you're using Wi-Fi for, you know, for like Zoom or something, then you're still susceptible. Even
That's
a
great.
tablet, iPad.
Good point. I'm glad we got that out because that's a great tip. Kevin Jackson, I think Kevin was from Boston, right? Kevin asked, this is actually good. He asked, can we post on the chat the best times? That's actually probably a good idea. If you don't mind doing that, that's actually good. If you guys can do that, that would be great, so people can see that. And so Kevin asked that, but then he also asked, what are your thoughts on we kind of touched that a little bit. Let's just directly ask it. What about third-party sites? I personally don't use third-party sites. It's the bane of my existence because I do everything manually, but you get to do things like tagging. You use a third-party site, you can't tag Instagram. And tagging on Instagram, not hashtags, that's different, but tagging the image is critical, I feel, on Instagram. So what do you guys think about let's talk a little bit deeper dive on those third-party apps, because I know they do have some value, but then it depends on what you're doing. So what do y'all think about that?
I think there's a time and place for everything. And we should not, oh God, Henry, cut to all of us. Don't do this to me. I love you.
That's awesome.
Because I'm looking at me and this is weird and okay. So back to third party apps.
All right, sorry.
It's okay. I think there's a time and place for everything. I think at some point, as much as we dislike them, thank you. Can you give me the other shot? Can you give me the shot of like you looking super professional?
Oh,
Come on. Do it. No, now you have to do it. Cut. Thank you.
There we go. Look at that.
There he is. Yeah.
Multi-camera.
There we go.
That's not my photo. That's
Thank you.
the wife's, but
Not your cat? All right.
Well, listen, if you
That's not
get
your
me, I will get you back. So the point is, there's a time and a place for everything. I would say don't shut yourself off to things. In a lot of ways, we have to use third-party apps. We have so much content that I would have to hire 2 people to sit there and manually post for us all day. Especially if you're trying to create fresh content for different platforms and you're trying not to post exactly on LinkedIn what you do on Insta, right? Because our audiences are different and our objectives are different. So for Copy and Art, for instance, we're looking to attract talent via Insta, right? That's where our team lives, but not where our clients live. So it's a different story when you go to our LinkedIn. So you might find some synergy, but it's not going to be the same content because the objective is different. On Instagram, I want to attract cool, smart creatives. On LinkedIn, I want to find the right client. And so the approach is going to be different. So unless I want to hire somebody who's going to post for us all day, I have to leverage third-party apps. And then what we do is we supplement that with the really fresh, organic content that happens moment by moment. And that mix might not be perfect for all, but for us, because we have to generate a lot of content to keep interest, it works really well for us.
That's great. Marcella, what do you think? Any comments on that?
Just what I was saying before. I don't use third-party apps for Instagram only, just because Instagram has a way to just, with the whole new updates and algorithms when third-party apps, Instagram, from what I've noticed, because I manage 17 accounts, I noticed once I started using third-party apps, I was losing a lot of following. Just everything was going down. So once I let go of the third-party apps, I realized there was a boost in there. So that's why I personally don't use them. But for other stuff, I do use third-party apps, just not for Instagram.
Excellent. All right, we are going to have the final question of the day, which is kind of cool. It's kind of dramatic, isn't it? Yeah, Henry, you can focus on me. I don't care. That's awesome. Okay, so this is from Taylor Kahn. Thank you, Taylor, for the question. And by the way, thank you, Joe, for making. Joe made a comment, Joe Gilderson, regarding the question that was just asked about the multi social media platforms. So thank you, Joe, for that. Taylor asks, what is the This is a great question, actually. What is the difference between SEM, search engine marketing, and search engine optimization, and what are the best practices for both? So that's that's heavy. So we can't talk about that for 3 hours. So I know Henry's, you know what? Henry's mid-court. He's mid-court.
I'm busy.
That's fine. So, Elaine, I'm going to kind of focus that on you to a degree because that's like what you guys do every day. So it's a great question because I think people hear those acronyms and they're like, what? They don't know what they mean, and clarity on that I think would be beneficial. So, thank you for that question, Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor, and happy to answer. But Aitel, do you have a perspective here?
As far as that, no, I'm gonna let you handle that one.
Okay. No, I just want to make sure that I'm cognizant of other people's expertise. So obviously, SEO is search engine optimization. So you want to make sure that your website primarily is the target is optimized for search. So what that means is there's going to be a paid component to that where you can pay to rank, right? We know that already. You Google anything, there's going to be that sponsored content on the top and on the sides. But organically, you want to make sure that your website is optimized. So what that means is whoever's building your site, there's a lot of back-end data that they plug in. This is our site. For instance, you can scroll so that you can kind of see, and there's iTools. Our content on the back end has keywords, has descriptions, and those are kind of what Google will use to rank and to make sure that your site comes in, and there's Henry's wonderful site, in the right order to the right person. So that's your site is optimized. And then the other side of that is SEM, which is the marketing for search engine. So that means you're going to basically market or pay to rank so that if somebody types in Westchester's leading ad agency, Copy and Art's going to come up. So we don't pay for that. So if you did that right now, it wouldn't come up. But you could market certain keywords and search terms so that your site associates with certain searches. And that's paid, and that's on the SEM side. And I'm going to stop there.
That's awesome.
Because it's a big deal. It's a big deal. A lot of money. It is a big deal.
That's a great question. That's a whole nother panel. Well, I have to say that I'm exhausted emotionally and mentally from all these great answers, and having to expose the band thing and and not talking about acronyms and everything else. I want to thank everyone that's attending, and also thank the panelists, and really want to reiterate the local focus. The fact that we have 3 experts in these different lines of business that can help you grow your business. I think that's important. Local talent. We have a lot of local talent here. We have
at the end of the show, Mike, we'll put up everybody's contact info too.
Oh yes, good point. Yes, we'll have everybody's contact info, and the Multicultural Chamber. This is segueing into Charlene. It's one of the focuses here is diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, and that's what we have here today, and that's what the audience should understand, that we have a very diverse, smart, and experienced marketing community in Westchester that can help you. So thank you, panelists. Thank you, everyone attending, and I am now going to hand it off to Charlene. I'll do what Henry did. I'll do the
See you guys.
Mid-court.
Wow, that's actually really a great show. Thank you for keeping it lively, Mike, and the rest of the gang. I just wanted to bring your attention to our upcoming event, which will be live. I think we're all zoomed out. We have to get back to some degree of norm. And the best way to network is person to person. The best way to make connections is person to person. So we invite you to attend our next Business Before Breakfast at the Radisson Hotel, where we'll be covering if you're legally set for business, some strategic planning, and your cash flow success. So it's important for you to know all these things, just as it's important for you to know about the marketing. There are three reasons most businesses fail: money, marketing, and management. So our purpose here is to provide you with all these tools where you have actionable things you can do during or right after. Okay, so please join us on February 9th at 8:30 for breakfast. Um, for business before breakfast. It will not be digital. And we look forward to having you as a member of the Westchester Multicultural Chamber. So again, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event.